Hey y'all, Ian here once again. For this week's video, I'm picking 3 great games and classifying them based on genre. The first game I'm going to discuss is Splosion Man for the Xbox Live Arcade. In Splosion Man, you play as a demented lab experiment that has the ability to explode without dying. Your ultimate goal is to escape the lab that created you, and this is done over a series of increasingly challenging levels. There are limitations on how you can move about through the levels. Your character only has one ability, the ability to explode. And this move basically functions as a jump, an attack, and your all-around means of interacting with objects in the game world. You can only explode 3 consecutive times before needing to recharge, and there are rules that dictate how your explosions interact with objects. For instance, if you explode into a wall, it basically functions as a wall kick maneuver that propels you up in the opposite direction of the wall. And there are certain barrels you can explode into that will either launch you high into the sky or horizontally across the room, depending on the color of the barrel. You have infinite lives, and if you die, you just start again at your most recent checkpoint. But you'll die a lot. There's a system of feedback in the form of a scoring system that awards you points based on things like how fast you completed the level, how many scientists you killed, and whether or not you found the level's hidden cake. Primarily, Splosion Man is a platformer. It takes place on a 2D plane over a series of self-contained levels. Your objective for each level is simply to get to the end, and the primary game mechanic involves jumping, powered by explosions. To a lesser extent, though, Splosion Man is also a puzzle game. While progression in the earlier stages of the game is fairly simple and straightforward, later levels really require you to think about how you can use your limited abilities and the objects around you to move past certain obstacles. So that's Splosion Man. Next, I'm going to talk about Banjo-Kazooie, which you may recall is the game I discussed in my intro video. In Banjo-Kazooie, you play as a bear in shorts named Banjo that carries his best friend, a smart-mouthed bird named Kazooie, around in his backpack. Your ultimate goal for this one is to rescue Banjo's kid sister from the evil witch Gruntilda and put an end to her tyrannical reign over Banjo's homeland. To do this, you must advance through her lair by collecting jigsaw puzzle pieces and music notes in the game's 9 worlds. You need to use the jigsaw pieces you collect to unlock each new world, and each one requires a greater amount of jigsaw pieces to unlock than the last. As for music notes, there are certain doors throughout Gruntilda's lair that will only open if you've collected enough music notes, and the final note doors you encounter will require you to have damn near all of them to proceed. You get feedback every single time Banjo collects something. There are certain chimes that correspond to every collectible item in the game, and I'm not just talking about the jigsaws and notes. Like, whenever you pick up a blue egg, you'll hear a bouncing sound. And whenever you collect a red feather, you'll hear a simple flute melody. Furthermore, if you collect all 10 jigsaw pieces in a world, Banjo does a celebratory dance. And if you get all 100 music notes in a world, then Bottles, the short-sighted mole that teaches Banjo and Kazooie all the moves they use in the game, will congratulate you for getting all the notes. Feedback like that exists for pretty much anything you accomplish in the game. Anyway, Banjo-Kazooie is mainly an adventure game. All of the game's worlds are connected to a larger hub world, which is Gruntilda's lair. You'll access each world through the hub, and you can enter and exit these worlds as you please. If you're struggling to collect jigsaws in one world, you can leave and go back to a previous world to pick up jigsaws you missed, or perhaps go see if you have enough jigsaws to unlock the next one. Furthermore, Banjo-Kazooie is also a collecting game. While getting all the jigsaw pieces and music notes isn't Banjo's ultimate goal, you still need to reach certain quotas in order to progress through the game, as mentioned earlier. And in my eyes, if you're not attempting to collect all the essential items in the game, you're not playing Banjo-Kazooie right. The final game I'm going to talk about is Skyrim, which is, let's face it, one of the greatest games of all time. In Skyrim, you fill the shoes of an ordinary adventurer who soon discovers that they are dragonborn, which means they have the blood and soul of a dragon, enabling them to learn the dragon language and use their powers. Your ultimate goal is to use your gift to stop a second coming of the dragons, spurred by the evil dragon lord Alduin. But you're probably not going to spend a lot of time doing that. Rather, most of your time with the game will likely be spent exploring the game's massive world, going on side quests, spelunking for treasure, or just going around killing shit. Your abilities are ultimately limited by your character building skills. The strength of your abilities will depend on how often you use them and on the equipment that you, well, equip. Once you've built up enough of your abilities, you'll have the chance to level up and unlock more perks. Skyrim's system of feedback comes in the form of story progression as you complete quest objectives, and in the form of notifications whenever you upgrade a skill or level up. I've always seen Skyrim as an adventure game with RPG elements. Being a fully 3D game played primarily from the first-person perspective, Skyrim offers a greater deal of freedom to explore and become immersed in your surroundings than most RPGs. And all the combat happens in real time, which is much more typical of adventure games than RPGs. Of course, the RPG elements come in the form of all the character building you're constantly doing as you play through the game. In a full-on adventure game, character building comes in the form of new moves you learn or items you acquire that allow you to reach previously inaccessible areas. But in an RPG, character building happens mainly through upgrading the abilities your character inherently has, as is the case with Skyrim. Okay, I've rambled on long enough. I'll catch you next week.